Renunciate of Fenris. The fate of the cult of Fenris is a matter of much debate among the Guru. The cult perspective, of course, is that its members know what they're doing, and that only a worm-weakened coward would ever question their willingness to go fangs first at the throat of the great defiler, especially from a no-risk place on the sidelines. Outside the cult itself, what happened is less clear. One theory is that the Incarna wolf was tricked by an aspect of the worm and now serves as thrall to that spirit. The other theory is that some aspect of the worm actually slew Wolf somehow, and the tribe now unknowingly follows an unknown spirit patronage. The most likely theory is also the most straightforward, that Hogolosk has, in fact, claimed the cult. And Wolf brooks no dissent in his followers. But of course, until Wolf or any other great spirit offers some kind of variable proof of the truth, that truth remains one of the mysteries of the spirit world. Not every member of the cult of Fenris follows their fellows down the path of Hogolosk. Some broke their compact with Wolf once they saw the direction the tribe was headed and pledged themselves to another tribe. Renunciate of Fenris. This is quite the controversial Loresheet, because the concept of the cult of Fenris, once in earlier times known as the Get of Fenris, is a controversial issue in and of itself. Perhaps in some night, some moot, where we can sit down and discuss things amicably, over a nice drink or a meal, we'll get into the details of the fall of the cult of Fenris. But for right now, what we're going to do is continue looking deep into this Loresheet to find out exactly what it does. I like the explanation that you could actually be a previous member of the cult of Fenris. One of the things I love about 5th edition Werewolf so much is that leaving a tribe and finding another is a possibility, depending on how your character grows or what the viewpoints of the individual actually are. So let's get into the Loresheet of the Renunciate of Fenris. Bootlicker. Even among the werewolves, the cult of Fenris has a violent reputation and predilection for following strongman-type leaders. As a bootlicker, you find your purpose in being pointed towards a threat by the actual autocrats. Once per game session, you regain 1 willpower after a guru of greater renown than you orders you into a conflict during which you spent willpower on a reroll. Bootlicker is pretty nice. It allows you to literally just get a willpower back after a situation where you were forced to use a willpower on a reroll. Now, you're doing this because your mind literally goes, it was not my will dictating the necessity for the reroll. It was the person I was taking orders from. So this makes you a soldier, not a leader. But it is a very interesting way of looking at the way the cult of Fenris worked. The concept of this person was in charge, I put my faith in that person, could almost be considered a cult of personality. Repudiated cultist. esteemed guru were present during your renunciation of Fenris, and made you a bit of an example for others. Your renown is considered one lower than its actual value during social interactions at moots. However, none may question your ferocity. If you ever have a situation that would cause you to lose the wolf because of a failed rage check, you may make an additional rage check. If it succeeds, your rage remains at 1 instead of dropping to 0. Ooh, something that is multifaceted in its benefits. First off, you might have a -1 to your renown in social challenges with other guru, but the spirits recognize what you've done. They still see you as quite the brute and are willing to teach you the gifts of someone of the appropriate renown, regardless of what the other guru think. That's useful. That's interesting. And could also lead to some fairly interesting interactions between spirits and wolves. But the true benefit of this is if you end up making a rage check in a combat situation and you lose the wolf, you can re-roll that rage to try to keep it. On a success, you get to stay at a rage of 1 instead of dropping to 0, which leads to losing the wolf. This is useful and makes sense for the mindset of the cult of Fenris. Unbroken. Despite renouncing wolf, the great spirit's patroness taught you fearlessness that persists within you. When a gift or other supernatural effect would engender fear in you, you may gain 2 dice with which to resist. When such an advantage is possible. Should you do so, however, you lose 1 dot to resist frenzy for the remainder of the scene. The guru are quite susceptible to losing themselves to their inner beasts. They do say that there are 2 wolves within you, 1 dark, 1 light, and whichever one you feed ends up eating the other over time. This is a very interesting advantage, unbroken, giving you the ability to better resist things that would calm your beast and bring you out of the rage needed to truly be a warrior. But it does also take a toll on the fact that you could lose control of that beast that you walk with. It's useful to have that +2 to resist powers that deflate the inner warrior. But having issues against controlling the frenzy makes this difficult. Channeled Fury. Fenris's asperity remains strong in you. Once per scene, you may opt to automatically succeed at any single rage check to activate a gift with a pull roll. But you also incur an extra brutal result on that pull roll. This one's interesting now, isn't it? So you can choose to gain that success, that thing that you might need to win, but the brutal success means that you're not going to care who gets in the way or what's in the way. You're just going to destroy them or it or whatever. It makes it so that your strength and your brutality shines through, but it does lead to success. Balancing the wolf is one of the most difficult things werewolves have to deal with. The Gru are known for their fury, And this is just yet another aspect of that. Last howl. You have witnessed firsthand the effects of Hagalosk. Having watched the glint of fanatical zeal kindle in your compatriots' eyes. But not so in yours. Once per chronicle, if you mark your last Hagalos box, you may make a rage check. If the rage check fails, untick that last Hagalos box. Congratulations, you fought your way back from the brink. Hagalos can be the loss of a character completely. The true definition of a monster can literally be might makes right. Not questioning if the ends truly justify the means, just doing whatever it takes, regardless of what it means to your individual soul. In this situation, however, if you fall completely to Hagalosk, you make a rage check. And if you fail that rage check, you don't lose yourself to that frenzy. You calm down, you reclaim a small portion of your humanity that werewolves so often take for granted, and are able to bring yourself back down from a boil to a simmer. The Renunciate of Fenris basically states that you have renounced the cult of Fenris. You once were a member of that cult. You were part of the Get. But the Get's gone too far. And again, there are in and out of character reasons for that I'm sure we'll go over at some point. It is a topic of conversation that I do find myself in with werewolf fans from time to time. And I'm sure that it will happen here with us on this channel. What it means to you, whether or not you were possibly a Norse pagan or something else, doesn't really matter. This is an aspect of the story that is so strong that when they brought on the 5th edition of Werewolf the Apocalypse, it wasn't something that could just be forgotten and overlooked. And this change, among with others, has upset some devotees to Werewolf the Apocalypse. Either way, the future calls, and it is up to us to answer that howl.